It's Matt Rodgers, of course, on the Honorable Mention podcast. We bring people on to give perspective of the people who actually do it day to day, cover the teams with the Philly slant, but of course, try to cover the whole league. This individual is a legend, 43 years, I believe.
What?
The legendary.
Legend? Who you talking about, man? Legend.
The legendary, infamous Derrick Gunn. Made stops out in San Diego, I believe Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia, of course, is no stranger to the inside and outside the locker room. Derrick, did I miss anything? Did I misstate anything?
No, I paid you well for that intro. You've earned your money.
Absolutely. So let's just get into it. I mean, there's no shortage of things to get into. So Sirianni, to you guys, is talking about Jalen's hurting and after the game. Do you think that that's him just trying to make sure that people are, give Jalen his credit for being a tough guy, or is he just really a little, sharing too much right there, oversharing?
Well, on our show, Sports Take, on the JAKIB Sports Media YouTube channel with myself, Rob Ellis, and Barrett Brooks, we've talked about this extensively. And I've said basically, for him to share something like that is unusual for him. He doesn't tell the media anything more than he has to. And you wonder if he's being honest or if it's gamesmanship, because they kept that game so vanilla against the Giants. They didn't call any running plays for him. You saw him, instead of turning up and running, he threw the ball out of bounds, anything to protect that shoulder. But I will say, going back to before that Dallas game, when we found out he wasn't going to play, the initial question I had was, is it more than just a sprain? And obviously you had to leave it as a gray area question at that point. But then he misses the next game against the Saints. Yep. And you knew that was a clinching game. And I felt if there was a game he could play, you play the Saints game, let him sit out the last game against the Giants, and then you have 3 weeks to heal up. But they kept him out of that Saints game. They rolled the dice, and the dice came up snake eyes on him, and they got shocked by the Saints. So they forced him to have to play this game against the Giants. Now, if he's still hurting, if there's a lot of truth to what Sirianni said, and he's still hurting, well, he made enough throws because that was a balanced attack. I believe 36 passes, 34 runs, to where now you irritate that thing again. Now, so to what degree, if he did irritate it, is the big question. The good thing is, unlike 12 other teams out there that have to go to war this weekend, he has an extra week to get treatment on that thing, to let it rest, heal up, which will be big. Or is this something he may have to just fight through? When you get to the playoffs, it's all hands on deck. If you can walk, you can play. And if you can play, we expect you to play at a level that helps us win. So it's going to be interesting to see. We've got to wait 2 weeks now, almost 2 weeks, to find out exactly if Jalen Hurts is 100%, close to 100%, or if this thing is really affecting him. And it's something that may have to be dealt with after the season is all said and done.
Well, key to keeping him upright and keeping him healthy will be having good protection around him. Are we going to have the so-called, some people have said he's the best tackle in football. I would contend he's at least the best right tackle in football. Is that guy going to be out there? We're talking about the great 65, Lane Johnson, of course.
Well, he was out there practicing and going through drills today with the team. Obviously, he's not doing anything rigorous like the other guys are. When you're talking about that abductor muscle, man, that's a tricky thing, because we know he's going to have surgery when the season is over. To what degree it's torn, we don't know that at this point. But I will say this, after watching Jack Driscoll play the right side the last 2 games, 75-80% of Lane Johnson is better than 100% of Jack Driscoll.
That's right.
And if Sirianni and Steichen and Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach, are reluctant to make the move, moving Mailata to the right side and inserting Andre Dillard, then I'd rather see Lane Johnson out there, because if you put Dillard out there, especially in a playoff scenario, I don't like those odds. Dillard, Driscoll has always been the guy who I've said he plays better moving forward, meaning run blocking, than he does backing up and setting up the pass block. And if a team takes away their run and forces the Eagles to pass more, that's not good for Jalen Hurts' right side of his protection. So hopefully Lane can get back out there and calm a lot of worries about the right side of that offensive line.
There's a lot there, but let's get what about, because there's another big injury and this guy's back, Josh Sweat. You expect him to be full tilt, ready to go?
Yeah, he was back out and today said he feels great. So yeah, that's huge in terms of getting your pressure, to getting the rotation back to where it was with the pressure on the D line. From what I was told, he looks good, he feels good, and again, because they have that additional week will let him heal up even more. Sirianni and those guys do a great job of knowing when to push their players in practice and when to back off veterans. And so, yeah, I feel good about Josh West being back out there on the left side of that D line. He should be good for at least another 2 or 3 sacks in the playoffs.
I can't wait. That defensive line is ferocious. D-Gun, is this the best? Yeah. Is this the best Eagles front that you've seen? Would you say that?
In all the years I've covered this team, yeah, I would say it is. It's the deepest. It's the most versatile. And then when you look at the success that it's had, 70 quarterback sacks this season, yes, I would say it's the best D-line that I've seen since I've covered this team. Now, you take into consideration who they played against. They didn't play against the best quarterbacks out there, but the bottom line is you can only play who's on your schedule. And they took advantage of that situation. Now hopefully they are what they've shown us that they are up to this point, and continue to carry that over to the next 2 games to get to the Super Bowl. But I feel real good about where they are right now, especially with the oppositions having to come through Lincoln Financial Field on their quest to try to get to the Super Bowl. It's always nice to have those games in your backyard and have to play one less game than everybody else to get to where you want to go.
Key to winning playoff games, I would contend, is turnovers. Tell me who won the turnover battle in the playoffs. I'd probably tell you who won the game. And key to that is going to be the interceptions leader for this year. Do you think we'll get him back? Fast forward and pass, potentially what happens in these next couple games. I mean, do you think that we're going to be able to pony up that money? Because we got to pony up for Jalen. Are we going to really be able to do it to get CJ back?
If there's anybody who can make the numbers work, it's Howie Roseman. But you have a lot of guys on 1-year contracts that you have to identify what you can keep and what you cannot realistically, especially if you're going to pay Jalen Hurts. That's now, technically, they don't have to pay Jalen Hurts a big contract in 2023. He still has 1 more year left on that rookie deal. They could franchise him, which would cost them $40 million, which is a big chunk of money, but they could still be able to do some other things. And Howie is a magician when it comes to working numbers. I mean, if they go that route, once again, he's going to ask a few players to restructure their deals. Is he going to bring Brandon Graham back? Brandon Graham, I think at this stage of his life, he just wants to finish his career in Philadelphia. He would finally give them a hometown discount. What are you going to do with Kazir White? What are you going to do with James Bradbury? I think it's in his best interest to bring CJ back. But if we're talking about a 5-year, $70 million contract for a safety / slot corner, that's a lot of money to invest in that position, especially when you have to invest into what we now know for sure is their franchise quarterback until further notice.
Absolutely.
I hope they can bring a CJ back. He's like that Swiss Army knife. He can play more than one position. But this team is in a good position in terms of being armed with 2 first-round picks. One of them right now, as we know it, is the 10th pick overall. If they decide to go younger, they're going to get one of the best 10 players in the draft and maybe get the best safety on the board, maybe get the best corner on the board, maybe get the best edge rusher on the board. And when they get that other pick in, it'll be one of the best players at whatever position they pick, if they decide to go defense with both positions. A lot of times, as much as you want to keep veteran players, you can't keep everybody. You have to get younger.
That's right.
And, to be in a position with 2 first-round draft picks, I like the odds more so than not of them getting 2 younger players who can be staples on that defense for years to come.
Do you think that they'll be able to get the money, make the money work for Dillard, or Dillard, they're just going to, it's going to be an amicable end to that friendship, that relationship?
I think it's going to be an amicable end. When you think about how they're nicked up along the offensive line and they decided to keep him on the bench instead of putting him on the field, I think that's telling you a lot of things about how they feel about an Andre Dillard. I mean, let's face it, he's played well in spurts and has not in other spurts. And I think they're just at a point now they feel it's the best interest to move on from him. And maybe it's in Dillard's best interest to move on and to find a new home and get a fresh start as well. They're very deep in the offensive line. Jeff Stoutland is one of the best, if not the best in the game at making his offensive linemen outside of the center position, versatile offensive linemen to play multiple spots. They're okay at offensive line without an Andre Dillard. I mean, they got this far without him for the most part. So if it's Andre Dillard's turn to move on, so be it. One thing Howie Roseman and that organization likes to do is they like to build this team from the inside out, meaning the offense and defensive lines. If Dillard leaves, I'm sure somewhere along the line, they will draft another offensive lineman or two and train them, cross-train them to be a viable entity on this offensive line sooner rather than later.
If I agree with you, D Gunn, because I think if he was versatile, like we talked about CJ Gardner Johnson,
right.
If he could play the backup left and right and could play at a, above average, clip, then you might want to keep him around for, $4 to $6 million, something like that on a backup deal. And it'd be mutually beneficial, but you can't do that. You can't do that for somebody who's just going to be a backup at the right. So,
well, when you look at a Dillard, it's obvious he's not comfortable on the right side. He's one-dimensional. He only plays the left side, and that's not what the Eagles need. The Eagles that's not what they need on this offensive line. If from a business perspective, if I'm Andre Dillard's representation, I'm putting my client out there to see what the numbers are. I'm not just taking what the Eagles offer just to stay here, because let's face it, there are a lot of desperate teams out there looking for offensive linemen. I mean, Big V, parlayed leaving here to a big contract moving on. Matt Pryor's made some good money moving on. So, right. Andre Dillard could be next in line, a smart business move.
He was a first-round pick.
Absolutely. So a smart business move is to see what's out there, to see what interest there is in my client. And I guarantee you that interest would be a lot more than what the Eagles are willing to pay him right now.
You talked about earlier, getting younger as a team. The management's goal is always to get younger, less expensive, great talent. That's the key to everything. Nakobe Dean, we expect to try to see him on the field. You get him this year. There was a lot of fanfare around that. Assuming that they want to move forward and get him on the field more, that means that you're going to have to choose either Kaiser or TJ Edwards. Which way do you think that they're going to go with that?
Well, I would think they would want to keep TJ more so because TJ has had an outstanding season. He is that thumper in the middle of the defense. Now, he is not a Jeremiah Trotter, but he's a sure tackler. He's always around the ball. He makes tackles in front of him and not behind him. You look at a lot of linebackers, when you see them, they're racking up 70, 90, 100 tackles. Most of their tackles are 5 or 10 yards down the field. Right. So that number.
Not going to say no names. There's one in recent history in Philadelphia, but we don't need to say no names. We're not going to do it.
Nope, no name calling here. But TJ is one of those guys. He's a very smart, heady player, stout player in the middle of that defense, calls a lot of the signals for that defense. So I think they will try to keep him. But again, what's the price that the Eagles are willing to pay him compared to what he may find on the market? Players always talk about, man, I really wanted to stay here. And you left because of the money, and I don't blame you. When you're in a business where you're the only of the 4 major professional sports, you're the only person that doesn't have guaranteed contracts. You get guaranteed front money. You only had your lifespan is less than all the other 3 big sports. You got to take advantage of that. This is your one time in your life you will make money you may never see again. So as much as you're loyal to an organization for drafting you or bringing you in as an undrafted free agent, you're a businessman also. This is your brand. This is your livelihood. This is your means to financial security at a young age in a lot of ways.
Tom Brady found the keys, but there ain't gonna be no 45-year-old linebackers. I'm sorry.
No, it's not going to happen. You're not going to see another 45-year-old quarterback for that matter. I don't know what elixir that dude's drinking, but I wish I had it, to be honest with you. But no, you're not. So you have to take advantage of this now. If the Eagles are offering you $7-8 million and somebody jumps out and offers you 15, what are you going to do? It's simple math, because you may never get another contract like that again. You came in here as an undrafted free agent. You played your butt off. You proved that you could play at a high level, and you played it on a rookie deal. Now is your time to financially shine. And again, I can't emphasize enough, as much as I would want to stay, who's offering me more money? Now, obviously, if it's somebody like Houston, I've got to think twice about that. Do I want to go down to Houston and be a part of a rebuilding process when I've already had the luxury of playing with one of the best teams in all of pro football? I like to put myself in a position to compete for the playoffs right now. So, it's tough finding that combination. Usually the teams that offer you the most money are teams that are hurting the most. And you have to decide, I'm in the prime of my career. Do I want to wait another 2-3 years before my team is good enough for us to make the playoffs? And by then, they may not even want me then, at that point.
And I might get nicked up all along the way. I might win the tackle. I have the tackles lead in the NFL, and then I get, I waste 2 years. I don't even make the playoffs.
You never know. You could be walking wounded by the time that career is over. By the time that contract's over, So I love TJ's game. Being from Wisconsin, I watched him play over 4 years at Wisconsin. If there was one knock on him, it's he's a little slow laterally, sideline to sideline, but he's been able to overcompensate that with his play at this level. His one weakness is he's not a great cover linebacker.
Right.
So you can take advantage of him in that regard, but he gives you everything else you need, all the other intangibles that a good linebacker has, and somebody's willing to pay that. Who? That remains to be seen.
So it's no secret, D-Gun, that you have talked to Brandon Graham a time or two, and we all know he's a key leader on this team. How do you think he's feeling about this run?
That dude, if the sky was falling, he'd tell you it's still a good day. That's how Brandon Graham is. He's always positive, always smiling, but he feels good about where this team is right now. I mean, they're a little nicked up at key positions, but they're healthy. They're a very healthy team in a lot of ways. Wide receiver position is healthy. Offensive line minus Lane Johnson. Defensive front getting Josh Sweat back. The two corners are still standing tall. The two Pro Bowl caliber type corners. You got your safety back in CJ. He's back as well. Marcus Epps has been playing phenomenal as well on the back end. So this is a healthy team going into the playoffs. And Brandon feels really good about their chances, and I don't blame him. He was here in 2017 when that team ran the table, when nobody gave them a chance of getting to the Super Bowl, let alone winning the Super Bowl. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
At that point. So, Brandon basically has told me everything that I thought he would, having known him since he got here in 2010, about where they feel they are right now. And him in particular, being 34 years old, he told us back in May on our show Sports Take that if his role was reduced, he'd be happy with that because he would be fresher in the fourth quarter. And lo and behold, he finally, for the first time in his career, got double-digit sacks, playing like 34% of the snaps.
It's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's his career is such a he's going to be definitely in the talk for the Ring of Honor. I mean, such a ultimate Eagle.
Yeah.
So
both on the field and off the field. His community service, I mean, he is the Eagles nomination for the Walter Payton Man of the Year, and rightfully so because of things that he's done within the community and his foundation and things like that. He is everything this organization wants. The Eagles organization prides itself in having good character guys, not just outstanding football players, but good character guys off the field. And Brandon Graham is at the top of that list when it comes to character guys. I say all the time, I wish there were 1,700 Brandon Grahams in the National Football League because of what he is in the locker room, on the field, and in the community.
And sometimes you need that guy who's like, no, there's still a way. We're still going to figure out a way to win this game. It looks bad. It's a rough time right now. The Eagles had a bit of a crisis, a 2-game losing streak with their backup quarterback this year. And I'm sure but it's easy to start being down on yourself, and having Brandon Graham in the room certainly. I mean, the Eagles, if once his playing days are over, would be smart to try to somehow keep him in that locker room.
And I'm sure they will. Maybe not in so much in the locker room, but within the organization itself, doing a lot of different things as they've done with players in the past. He would be a great liaison to young players in terms of helping them make the transition from the college ranks to the pros, helping veteran players as well enhance their leadership capabilities. Brandon Graham is everything you want as a person and as an athlete.
Absolutely. His teammate, Hassan Reddick, Temple guy. Do you think he'll get any votes at all for the defensive player of the year?
I think he will, but I think Nick Bosa has that locked up. For whatever reason, and we joke about this in our show all the time, Philadelphia sports teams and the fan base get such a negative rap on the outside looking in. It's gotten to a point where it's frustrating and comical at the same time. Prime example, the NFLPA came out with this first ever all-pro team, just a few days ago. Their edge rushers, they had Nick Bosa, rightfully so, with 18.5 sacks, and Myles Garrett. Now,
Absolutely.
you can't argue against Myles Garrett because Myles Garrett had as many sacks as Hassan Reddick, had more total tackles than Hassan Reddick, and had more tackles for a loss than Hassan Reddick. But Hassan Reddick's numbers were pretty good, pretty doggone good. And on top of that, for the third year in a row with 3 different teams, Arizona, Carolina, and the Eagles, he finishes with double-digit sacks. And I love what Jonathan Gannon said not too long ago. If I hadn't have Hassan Reddick dropping back in coverage so much, he might have had 25 sacks this year.
That was
and I truly believe it. Yeah, I'm sure it was. But he could have probably been closer to 20 than he was to 16. Had he not been dropping back in coverage, but that's their scheme and that's their philosophy in terms of how they use him. But every game you see him come up with a different move to get to the quarterback. He's so quick. He's so smart. He deserves all the accolades. But when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year, I'd be shocked if Nick Bosa doesn't win that.
Yeah, he is the last time. I mean, Connor Barwin was very good, but I think, this year's Hassan Reddick, I would take over Barwin. He's like, Trent Cole. He's the last guy since like a Trent Cole for the Eagles.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I think he's a little bit better version of Trent Cole. I think he has a better array of moves than Trent Cole. I think Trent Cole was maybe a little stronger in terms of taking the offensive linemen on head-to-head, but Hassan Reddick is craftier. He sets up an offensive lineman for one of his moves, and then he's gone past him before an offensive lineman can recover and wreaking havoc in the backfield. Either one of those guys can play on my defense at any time. I love both of the games. Trent Cole's a friend of mine. I couldn't go wrong with either one of those guys on my defense.
I was listening to WIP the other day, and they had on Javon Curse. And I was like, wow, Javon Curse is great on radio. I didn't know that. I mean, have you had a chance to talk with him before and have him on the show?
Well, I had, but we haven't had him on our show. But last time I talked to Javon was at Brian Dawkins' foundation golf outing back in May at Penn Oaks outside of Philadelphia. Well spoken, still the same guys when he played the game. I'm surprised he doesn't have more of a prominent career in the broadcasting industry. But then again, every ex-athlete thinks they can just transition into broadcasting until they find out it's not as easy as you think. We plan on getting Javon on one of our shows, but have not had the luxury of having him on yet.
He made a really interesting point on there. He was talking about how, Ike was talking about how when they got Javon Curse, they felt like, oh, we got our own TO, and how, there was no system that had to be built up around Javon Curse. Javon Curse just fit in and just had his role and just raised hell out there. And it was a quite, he gets undertold as a X factor on that team. Don't you think so, D-Gun?
Well, you mean Javon?
Javon Curse, yes.
Yeah. I thought he was a better player when he was playing at Jacksonville more so than when he came here. He was a factor here, but I don't know if they utilized him improperly.
Tennessee, right?
Tennessee. I'm sorry, Tennessee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They utilized him improperly. I think here they didn't play more to his strengths when he was here.
Okay. Okay.
And he didn't last too long here.
No, he didn't.
But Javon Curse was a phenomenal player in his prime. There's no question about it. And I wish he could have found the same measure of success in Philadelphia that he had in Nashville. Unfortunately, that was not the case, but he did give you that presence coming off the edge here that gave other defensive players a comfort that part of the field was taken care of. He may not have racked up the sacks the way he did in the past, but he held his own against the run. He set the edge. He was still a crafty, heady player who was what this defense needed. But I just thought that, I don't know if it was due to injuries or the fact that they didn't utilize him the same way he was used at Tennessee. I thought his numbers here suffered a little bit.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. But I will have to give him the credit that he was an X factor in that game against the NFC Championship against the Falcons. Being him and Derrick Gunn just being able to contain Michael Vick. That Michael Vick had another level of speed. He was unreal.
That was Michael Vick. That was video game Michael Vick at that time of his career, and the Eagles did a phenomenal job of keeping him in the corral and not just letting him run free. They had the right personnel in there. And, maybe that was part of it. The roles changed a little bit depending on who you were playing at that time. And obviously the role changed a little bit when he went from Tennessee here to Philadelphia for Javon Curse. But Javon Curse was just a freak of nature in terms. He wasn't the biggest. He was big in terms of height, like 6'5", but not in weight. He was like about 260, 265. As we continue to see defensive edge presences transition from being those 300-pound guys to 255, 265 getting off the ball. They'll give up something in terms of run defending, but because this is such a pass-happy league, you got to get faster. When teams are getting faster on offense, you got to get faster on defense. And a lot of times the best way to do that is to get smaller guys who are faster.
And he would set that edge.
He would. Yes, he would.
and we needed that. And they won that. And people don't remember that because it was the season that T.O. came to the Eagles. But that, we needed, I think it was 27-10. I think they took care of business that day and locked down the Falcons. And that was not an easy task. That took more. It took Trot. That took all kinds of people. But Javon Curse, people got to put more respect on Javon Curse's name, I got to say.
The thing I remember most about that game, that NFC Championship game at the Link was the day before we had a major snowstorm through this region, man. And it was like 20-something inches of snow. And our crew that covered the game, we had to stay at a hotel near the stadium because we didn't know if we would be able to get up and down the highways to get from our homes to the stadium to cover the games. And the next day, they cleared the field in time, and the place was electric. It was like a winter wonderland. The Eagles won the game, snowballs flying everywhere. It was just a great day. Everybody wondered how are they going to control this Michael Vick and Algie Crumpler and all these guys. And man, they put it on them to get to that Super Bowl.
They absolutely did. And McNabb finally got to hoist that trophy. That felt like a moment.
Yes, indeed.
That ended up being the pinnacle of McNabb's career that day.
Considering they lost 4 previous NFC Championship games, to finally get over that hump and to get to the Super Bowl, you're right. That put McNabb on another pedestal. Now, obviously, when he threw those picks in the Super Bowl, a lot of people turned on him again. Well, that's another story. But it did put him on that pinnacle of being one of the favorites in his town when he finally overcame that dark cloud over him.
Absolutely. So anybody you think, D-Gun, that's in danger this weekend of getting blown out like we were talking before the off air, we were talking about TCU getting it put on them. Is anybody in danger of getting the brakes beat off them, as some may say?
I would say that San Francisco-Seattle game is going to be an interesting game. We just had James Palmer from the NFL Network on our show the other day, and he said he talked to some of the 49ers defensive players recently. He said they celebrate. He said that defense likes to celebrate, what did he call it? Violence. They like to celebrate violence. He said when they sit down the night before a game, they don't even look at offensive. They look at defensive film of what their defense is doing. And that 49ers defense is nasty. And now they've played Seattle twice this season, so Seattle knows them. They know Seattle. 49ers have won both games. It's a division game. You always think division games are going to be closer. I think that game, and let's face it, Geno Smith has been one of the great stories of the NFL season this year, a habitual backup who completed 70% of his passes, put himself in line to make some big money. You know, between him and Pete Carroll, the coaching job Pete Carroll did with that team, with a bad defense, but yet an offense good enough to will them into the playoffs, obviously with a little help. You know, that's a great storyline. But I think Seattle comes crashing back down to earth in that game against the 49ers this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be Geno Smith even comes close to winning this game. He's going to be in a movie. They're going to make a Geno Smith movie because the story is people love that story.
Well, I mean, there's another great story on the other side. You look at this kid named Brock Purdy. He doesn't even have an NFL name. Brock Purdy sounds more like a farmer than it does a football player.
It does.
And this guy comes from out of nowhere, Mr. Irrelevant. He comes in at a crucial point of the season, a big game against the Miami Dolphins, and you're thinking 49ers are in trouble. This kid moved this offense like he had been under center all season. And kudos to Kyle Shanahan for being able to streamline the offense to cater to his strengths. And I was just looking at a highlight film of this kid the other day. And look at how he stands in the pocket, how he dodges, rushes, how he knows he's about to get hit, and he still delivers strikes down the field. This kid has ice water in his veins. That's another incredible story on the NFL storyline this season. This team is 10-0 going into the playoffs. And with not just a third string quarterback, but the last player drafted in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. And they haven't missed a beat. And you look at his touchdown ratio compared to his interception ratio, it's unbelievable. And he's making the deep over the middle throws. He's making the deep sideline throws. He scrambles. He buys time. He throws accurately. And now that Debo's back, you know, the weapons they have on offense, first of all, it was a crime that the Carolina Panthers allowed the 49ers to make that deal for Christian McCaffrey. That's the last thing anybody in the league wanted to see.
Remember when CP3 was supposed to go to the Lakers and the league vetoed it? That should have happened.
It should have happened because now you're looking at McCaffrey, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, the running back, who is it, Elijah Moore. I mean, they just have weapons. Elijah Mitchell. They got and they're getting healthier now. The defensive players are getting healthier. They're back now. They've been wrecking people on defense, and they've been banged up seriously on defense for much of the season. But the last 2 or 3 games, they're starting to get healthy. Now the frontline players are back to make that rotation even that much better. I mean, this team, I can't wait to see this team play throughout the playoffs. And, of course, I couldn't wait to see them play. If it comes down to it, to see them come to Lincoln Financial Field to play the Eagles, that will be a game of games to see those two defenses going at it against those offenses.
And that was the people got the main event in 2017 with the Vikings. That was league's number one defense. Came into Philly and Nick Foles put a hurting on them. Put a hurting on that one too.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and it's what I really want to see from this Purdy guy is how does he handle playoff pressure compared to regular season pressure? You can make mistakes in the regular season and still have that next game to overcome those mistakes. That's now it's one and done. You don't get it done, you are out, plain and simple. So the pressure of playoff football increases 10 times more so than it does in the regular season.
Dougie P and the Jaguars are 1.5 point underdogs at home after last week's game, where I got to ask you before we even get to this game.
Yeah.
What's the tuck rule, D Gun? I mean, does that exist or what are we?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know. Rules change every week in the NFL. I don't know what pass interference is anymore because they call PI on touchy stuff, and yet they get away. They do the same thing the next play, and it's not called. I don't know what pass interference is anymore in the National Football League. I don't know what a lot of things are anymore in the National Football League. I'm looking at some of the Eagles games. Landon Dickerson in that game against the Saints, basically, just pancakes a defensive lineman. It looked like a clean block. Kenneth Gainwell runs for a touchdown. They call it
Mm-hmm.
back. One of the
That's
most
right.
bogus calls I've ever seen. But yet you see players clutching and grabbing all the time on offense. Sometimes
Right.
it's called, sometimes it isn't. I don't know what is or is anymore. So if to ask me what's the tuck rule, I couldn't even begin to tell you what it is because whatever I tell you, it might not be an accurate description of what it's supposed to be.
It's ridiculous. And I was watching that game. I was enjoying it. It's just as a football fan, I enjoyed that action. But to see it kind of come down to that was a disappointing, from the fan perspective, because it just didn't feel like it was like that they got all excited. Their fans were thrilled and everything, but come on. I mean, that the hand was coming forward. That's just my opinion.
Well, according to Charles Woodson, it was not. Okay, when you talk about that
Defensive player.
Yes.
Defensive player.
Versus an offensive player. And I just saw a show, I believe it was on ESPN, where Charles Woodson and Tom Brady are sitting down together. I believe it was in Tom Brady's house down in Florida, I believe it was. And they're watching the game and they're going over the play. And to this day, they still disagree on what it was and what it was not. I think Brady got the call. I think it was a fumble. I think Brady got the call because he's Tom Brady, more so than anything else when it comes to that. Hopefully we never see that again. We never have to discuss that again in a game, especially a big playoff game. They've revamped the rules somewhat to appease that, but, it's a gray area. Anytime you see a quarterback's arms hitting, the ball flutters out, the first thing you want to see is, let me see that replay again. I want to see if his arm's coming forward. Well, I want to see is a true, a true strip or or fumble.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I don't trust anything anymore when it comes to league referees.
And that's not even honestly, D-Gun, I don't even think that's a hot take, because I feel like a lot of people have lost faith in the system.
These referees, they sit down in the offseason, they have seminars, they look at film, they go over what is and what isn't, and they still don't get it right a lot of times. You have all these replay cameras that show you the different angles, and a lot of calls are still left for controversy. And I'm thinking, how much more flawed can it be? You have training, you have endless amount of films to show what is and what isn't. But when the games unfold, every week we're looking at a game in a situation where you're still coming out questioning, did they make the right call on a catch? What is a catch rule nowadays? How many steps does a receiver have to take that is considered a catch and a fumble if he fumbles? Because we've seen some take 2, some take 3 steps.
That's right.
We don't know what is and what isn't anymore. I
That's
go back to pass interference again. These guys are clutching and grabbing down the field all day. And I think a lot of times when a defender gets called for pass interference, it's offensive pass interference, but the defender calls it. And that's why you see a lot of teams now, especially in 3rd and short situations, they'll throw the ball because they're thinking they're going to get the pass interference call, and 8 times out of 10, they get that call.
Absolutely. That's just the play. Throw it up. Absolutely. Aaron Rodgers does it a lot. Rodgers.
Why not? If it works,
you know what it is. When they line up, you can see it. You can see it. Check.
Yes. Just go deep. Just go deep. If he doesn't touch you, if he doesn't touch you, just make it look like he touched you. That's all you got to do. You get the call.
While we bring up Aaron Rodgers, Wisconsin's finest. Is this the end of the road for Aaron Rodgers?
Man, I don't know. I'm tired of Aaron Rodgers and his swan song every year. I'm going to take some time. I won't hold the team hostage. I'm going to make a decision. Aaron Rodgers, you need to go back to the Amazon rainforest and whatever peyote you smoking with the natives down there. Just call it a career, dude. You got to make a decision on this kid, Jordan Love. Is he your future? Aaron Rodgers was in the same situation when he was the understudy to future Hall of Famer Brett Favre. Now the years have gone by, and the Packers drafted Jordan Love. He's now coming up in the final year of his contract. You've got to find out if this kid is your future as well. So Aaron, you serve the organization well. If it's your time to ride off into the sunset, so be it.
I mean, I would I wouldn't appreciate if the Eagles quarterback jerked the team around and the fan base around. That would never go in Philadelphia.
No,
that would never be accepted.
No. And for having a lot of family in Wisconsin, they're always texting me, "Hey man, people here are turning on Aaron Rodgers, man. They're tired of his act." Now I understand he was playing with a broken thumb, but he missed wide open receivers he never missed in before. He missed wide open receivers time and time again. And I don't know if it was because of the constant missed communications with the younger receivers or if that thumb was really altering his throws, causing balls to sail more. But whatever the case may be, Green Bay did not deserve to get in the playoffs, and they did not. They made a gallant run at the end. They bowed out gracefully or ungracefully, depending on how you view it, and so be it.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to the Chargers and Jags, who you got in that one?
First of all, my guy Dougie P, kudos for getting the team to the playoffs in the first year. You've done wonders with Trevor Lawrence. You got that team to believe in itself. Basically, a team that Urban Meyers tried his best to destroy. You took that same team, coupled with the fact that the ownership went out and spent some money bringing in receivers and other help. I think they'll put up a gallant fight. But the Chargers have not been scoring with the frequency that they have been in the past. The receiving core is always nicked up. And now you wonder what the heck was Brandon Staley doing? That last game was meaningless to them.
Yeah,
they couldn't improve. And you had Mike Williams out there, and lo and behold, he gets a lower back injury to the point
he's
where
injury prone.
Yes, he gets to the tunnel.
Of all people, Mike Williams.
Yes, the one dude you need on the field. But I do think the Chargers defensively, the Chargers got a good defense, man. Derwin James, Bosa, Khalil Mack, and those guys. I think the Chargers go in there and take that game. I think it's going to be a good, entertaining game, but I think the Chargers take that game.
Absolutely. And kudos to the Jaguars for even getting into the playoffs this year.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's
nobody thought they would be a playoff team. Everybody thought Doug's journey would be similar to what it was in Philadelphia. Take over a team that's down and out, have them win more games than they lose that first year, and then build a type of team that you want in year number two. Doug's team came together a lot quicker than people thought. They struggled early on. They finally got on a roll. Trevor Lawrence finally played like that number one overall pick everybody expected him to play like. With their running game, their defense is pretty good. They got some great pass catchers, great running back in Etienne, Travis Etienne. I expect them to be heck to deal with at home. They're going to be jacked up. But when the game settles and you start just playing football, I think the Chargers will play football just a little better than Jacksonville.
I agree. Dolphins and Bills. The people got the Dolphins getting cooked. Is that what you got, D-Gun?
Absolutely. That's going to be like Custer's last stand. That game. You look at the emotional high Buffalo's going to be on. Can you imagine if Hamlin comes out on that field, walks out on that field? 9 days after.
49-0.
Man, let me tell you something. Just 9 days after he had to be resuscitated twice. He's out of the hospital now. Can you imagine? That's going to bring the house down. You go back to that last game Buffalo just played. Everybody's breathing a sigh of relief. Everybody's wondering, is Buffalo's heads going to be in this game, even though, the kid's doing a lot better. The opening kickoff, Nyheim Hines takes it back for a touchdown. That brought the house down in Buffalo. So imagine when this young man walks out on the field and waves the fans, or if he's in a box somewhere, they put the camera on him. Dude, and Miami's playing Skylar Thompson against that Buffalo defense and that Buffalo offense. That game could be ugly real quick. It's a division game, but I think this is the mismatch of the weekend, to be honest.
Give me a score, D-Gun.
I can say like 35-14, and it'll be like 35-7, and the only way Miami gets to 14 is that Buffalo calls off the Dogs, and gives them a gracious, meaningless touchdown and close out their season.
I see it. Yeah, that's it. And they don't even have Tyreek Hill. They don't got Tua. You think Tua's? You think this is the end of the road for Tua?
I don't know. He's had 3 bad concussions this season. The fact that he is still not clear concussion protocol tells me it's going to be a long journey back. And considering how Miami has been put under the microscope for botching, him having a concussion on a Thursday and then allowing him to, having a concussion on a Sunday and then allowing him to play on a Thursday night where he got another concussion. So obviously somebody missed something in the diagnosis in terms of whether or not he should have been on that field on that Thursday night. And then, of course, he plays in that game against Green Bay, gets another concussion. He finished the game, and then on Monday tells the organization that I don't feel right. That's twice they misdiagnosed his case. I think they're going to be super cautious with them. So when their season comes to an end this weekend, they will sit down and thoroughly diagnose where he is. I think he'll try to come back. I think it's competitive juices. He'll want to come back and prove to people that he can play this game at a high level and stay away from a serious injury. But when you've had that many concussions in one season, and the last one you have is
short order, boom.
And you've kept and the last one has kept you out for several weeks now, to the point where you have not even been cleared to play in this playoff game 2 weeks after the fact. Miami has some soul searching to do in terms of how they want to move forward with him and the quarterback situation.
The next game, the Vikings and the Giants, there's a wide variance. I'm hearing people think wildly one way. The Giants are going to take care of business, go and embarrass the Vikings. And then I got people thinking that the Vikings are going to embarrass the G-men. What do you think is going to happen here? The line is 3. Is that closer to what you think, or what?
I think so. Go back to Christmas Eve. Vikings needed a 61-yard field goal by Greg Joseph on the last play of regulation to win that game 27-24.
That's right.
Giants gave them all they could handle in that dome. Giants are going back to that dome. They're just as confident now as they were then, probably even more so. Now, hey, look, they won that game on a fluke. We could win that game. We held them to 27 points. We put up 24 points. We can play with this team. The Vikings have issues on the offensive line. They're going to be down 2 more offensive linemen this game. Wink Martindale's defense blitzes over 42% of the time. They're coming after Kirk Cousins. The running joke has been, if Kirk Cousins plays at 1 o'clock on a Sunday, he plays like a Hall of Famer. Anytime he plays outside of 1 o'clock, you don't know what you're going to get from Kirk Cousins, whether it's 4:30, 8:15, Monday Night Football. He's playing at 4:30 on a Sunday. I expect the Giants. This is probably a mild one, but I expect this one to be the upset of the weekend. I think the Giants can go in there and rattle them just enough. Now, Justin Jefferson is going to get his touches, but I think the Giants can go in there and rattle Cousins just enough to pull off an upset.
Yeah, I think the Giants. I think the Giants take care of business too. I don't know by hook or by crook, but I think the Giants will be advancing. I don't think the Vikings are Jekyll and Hyde, and they can be real. Hang with anybody, beat anybody, or they can lose to anybody. So
absolutely.
But the Bengals are 9.5-point favorites against Huntley and the Ravens. Is that about what you think for that one?
Well, I think that's about right. Since Lamar Jackson has been out since December, the Ravens have been averaging a little over 13 points a game. That is not enough to beat Cincinnati in Cincinnati. That's not even close enough. But as good as Baltimore's defense is, you can only put so much stress on a good defense if your offense is not contributing to the equation. I think Baltimore is in trouble. I think they're going to be one and done. You look at this Cincinnati team that had to go on the road last year. Nobody thought Cincinnati was going to be a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. They went on the road and shocked the world. They've really started playing well the latter part of this season. The offensive line has played better. They've got a great running game, a trio of great wide receivers, good tight end, and a very active defense. I think Cincinnati wins this game by double digits. Might be like 24-14, 28-10, something like that. I don't think it's going to be a nail biter of a game at all.
Oof. Yeah, I don't think they can hang with them. I think Joe Burrow is turning into the modern day Peyton Manning, just doing it the precision from the pocket, and taking over. So I don't think it's going to be close. It's a snoozer here, y'all. Sorry to spoil it for you. Monday Night Football will not be a snoozer, though, at least not for me, one way or the other. What are you thinking about the Cowboys? Cowboys are 2.5-point favorites in Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay is not that team that it was a couple of years ago when it was that pit bull mentality on defense. But what I've seen of Tom Brady the last 2 weeks tells me that Tom Brady is now in playoff mode. Last 2 games, 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Tom Brady is getting the ball out quick again and slinging it. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and those dudes, they don't have a running game, but Tom Brady's going to throw 45 passes. We talk about how fast Dallas's interior is on the pass rush. But when you have a quarterback getting the ball out of his hands 2.3 seconds, that neutralizes that pass rush real quick. And if you really watch Dallas closely, the last 4 or 5 games of the season, that defense has not been getting home with the frequency that it was earlier in the season. Okay.
No.
Dak Prescott has thrown interceptions 7 consecutive games, and in 12 games this season has thrown 15. Led the NFL in interceptions with 15. I don't know why his game has been off as it has, but it's a problem. Personnel-wise, Dallas has the personnel to go down there and to beat Tampa, but Dak has to play the perfect game for that to happen. The Bucks don't score a lot of points. I'm picking Dallas in this game, but I would not be surprised if Brady emerges from that battle on Monday night. If Dak doesn't play the perfect game, Tom Brady is going to win that game. And let's just say if seeds 5, 6, and 7 bow out, guess what? Tom Brady and the Buccaneers come to Philadelphia for the Eagles' first game. Okay.
Wow.
Keep that in mind also. And that's a one quarterback. I don't care what you say about Tom Brady at this stage of the career. Tom Brady is the one quarterback you don't want to see in your first game because he's so smart. He gets the ball out of his hands so quickly. That's the last dude you want to see in your first game when you've had extended rest.
Yeah, to be lit up by the Bucks again in Philly, it would be a rough evening.
Not a good thing. Not a good thing.
and people will have flashbacks from that 2002 team that got.
You'd have a whole lot of people lining up. You'd have a whole lot of people lining up on the Walt Whitman Bridge if that happened, man. So that's the last thing you want. As sky high as this fan base is right now about the prospects of this team going to the Super Bowl, anything short of the Super Bowl would have a lot of people ready to jump off the Walt Whitman Bridge right now, man.
Yeah. And I wish it wasn't true. I wish it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So D Gunn, when can people catch you day to day? You're on JAKIB Media. Is that starts at 12, right?
Yeah, JAKIB Sports Media YouTube channel. Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis, and myself, we do a show called Sports Take from noon to 3 Monday through Friday. We have great guests on. This week alone, we have Sal Palantonio, my guy Sal Palantonio on, James Palmer from the NFL Network. We had D. Lynham, who covers the 76ers as well as other teams as well. So we always have a great collection of people on. You can also check out my podcast, Gun on One. My guest this week is Zach Berman, who covers the Eagles for The Athletic. Great insight, great conversation. Hopefully, you people, you can watch it on JAKIB Sports Media, or you can always listen to it wherever you get your podcast, on Apple, Spotify, whatever the case may be. And then, of course, on JAKIB also, check out our pre- and post-game shows on game days. On pre-game show, I do with Mark Farzetta and former Eagle great Seth Joyner. Post-game show with radio personality Mike Missinelli, Seth Joyner, myself, and Devin Caney. So I do a little bit of everything, man. I'm all over the place. I'm a mercenary. Hit the ground running, get in and get out as quick as you can. Keep moving.
It's hard to miss you out there, D-Gun. You out there making it do what it does. You look up to you. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for listening. Subscribe, share this, and go follow Real D-Gun. The man is a legend. Like I said, legend. Thanks.
I still don't know who you're talking about. I think that's my cousin you're talking about, man.
The infamous, the notorious D-Gun. See y'all.
There you go. I like that.